walls. Demon gonna hide around the corner. Looks like GU looking fantastic for this first round out of 11. They're gonna pick up MT7 and GOW already off to a great start.
A very nice start indeed for GOW. That first initial pick with the grenades, really smart that they all decided to go with the sawed-off, knowing the environment of the map. Again, map knowledge is really, really important. You don't know what's going to be the next one after that following round, but now that we come into this one, it's going to be interesting, right? Because again, both teams have completely ignored the cyber drops for the most part, and even during when we saw their scrimmages in rehearsals, they opted, you know what, we don't need this anyways. I don't know whether or not it's a viable strat for them or it's something that they're not going to take seriously at all. But I think that at the very least for GOW, if they're not going to contest, no point putting yourself in that type of situation or danger.
No, it makes sense. I've seen teams just get trapped thinking that they're going to be able to get the cyber airdrop and then their team just crumbles. So it's a pros and cons. You have to weigh your odds, right? For now, Fluxo going to stay grouped as a team. Very interesting decision, actually. The team is so clumped up together, whereas for GOW, they are trying to find a bit of a flank. Rip, unfortunately, taking some damage there, so that's going to halt his expedition. But you can see to the side, though, Demon looking to go for a wraparound. GU is just around the corner, but Butsen's there to provide support, and Bobs is also there to provide any kind of help. But they do need to be very wary of Hans and Demon, because Demon, this man's got a lot of support behind him. He wants to run in and he wants to dish out some damage.
He really does. And it's interesting because in terms of like the loadouts, right, you can see that both sides are taking a more passive approach because they're very aware, hey, they got micro Uzis, they got 2 big rifles on the side of Fluxo. They decided to buy up even though they don't have much armor. But GOW, that's the payoff right now. Deanne, he's the only one without armor right now, but he has the rifle. Now that he's already using that cryo mine, puts it on top of the roof to get max value. I think it's okay, but not as much as they would like. In comparison to Fluxo, who's taking their time, but the zone is forcing him in. Unless they give some kind of support on that top side, MT7 might be in some trouble as they get pushed off the roof in high ground, dominated by Fluxo.
Yeah, so that was a very ballsy push coming out from MT7 because he was originally on the other side, but pushing forward, forcing GOW back. And I have to say, this is one of our slower circles because we are finally going to be going for a bit of a rotation. You can see Fluxo trying to find that opening there. The summon going to be taken out from Nero. And we get a double drop. Hans and Rip going to be taken out by Butsen. And the entire team in just a fraction of a second. In one moment, Fluxo clean up GOW.
Beautifully played, really beautifully played by Fluxo. This is what we call the war of attrition. Every moment, they're not taking super aggressive angles, but they are slowly letting GOW take the space and then forcing them into corners where they have to use their utility, their active skill cards as much as they can. And when they know all of them are out of the way, then Fluxo can run in and take on the honest fights that they were known for, and more importantly, know that they have a very big advantage over GOW.
Yep. All right. Round 3, folks. We're currently tied 1 apiece, so both teams definitely in the running to be able to take match number 1. But Fluxo, I have to say, very interesting to see how patient Fluxo is playing this first best of 3. Like, normally we're so used to seeing them just bum rush into their enemy, but they are extremely calculative in their movement so far. And I think it's actually shocking GOW. They're expecting Fluxo to just run at them. And because that's not happening, it almost feels like GOW, they don't know how to react to this very, very slow, very methodical playstyle coming from our 2024 world champions. But here we go. The moment has come. Butsen going to be coming in with the melee sight. Does get a couple of hits in. Does not get the auto knock. But Demon going to be taken out by Bobs. First blood.
They've already found one. The cyber airdrop was contested. Fluxo still gets it at the very end. They've knocked down RIP, and again, they are dominating every side of the map. One coming around the flank as GU buys a little bit of time within the Cyclone, but Butsen finds it at the very end, taking out Hans and Deanne alongside with him. Really great stuff coming in from Fluxo, right? Again, this is hyper patient, right? Even GOW are like probing for a response, and Fluxo just does not move, right? They're playing dead possum, and they feel like they can do whatever they want. Goes for the cyber drop, instantly punished by Fluxo as soon as they take the space. So again, I think that GOW, there's a lot more elements that they have to think about dealing with Fluxo, with how flexible they are right now, because their fundamentals have been looking so shaky in comparison to Fluxo.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, round number 4. Fluxo currently leading with a score of 2-1 versus GOW. And so far, Fluxo looking really scary here. It's going to come down to GOW. Can they adapt to this very, very precise playstyle coming out from Fluxo? And so far, Demon's going to be going in for a bit of a skirmish there. GU going to be moving it forward for the team as well. Bob's getting caught out by Demon. That's a big pick off there. And maybe this is the moment of time where we see GOW make a comeback happen. GU has been caught by Rip, leaving MT7 and Butson all on their own. Dian, unfortunately, going to be taken up by Butson. So numbers on the side of GOW, they are also being culled. A bit of a shot for MT7, but not a critical one. They do manage to get another one onto Rip. And look at this. They might be able to equalize this match. Rip is down. It's a 2 versus 2.
It's a dangerous 2 versus 2. Who knows what could happen, especially with a P90 in hand. And even so, Demons, he still has the time turner if necessary. Luckily, from the opposite side, at least for MT7 or even Butson. Oh, wait, no, they don't have their active skill cards. They actually used it pretty early on. Butson especially, right? He looked for the angle, wanted to go for a little bit more, didn't find his own reset. So now they're just going to bide their time. They're waiting for the Iris active skill card to come back online, and they want to make sure, hey, we're going to drop down our glue walls here. If they fall into our glue walls, we can still utilize Iris. And I think that even GOW is a little bit more aware about it as, on top of it too. Electrotherapy ready to go at any moment. Time turner as well if things get really, really dicey. At this point, it's just a battle of information.
It's a battle of information, a battle of patience as well. And looks like Fluxo looking to push into with 2 of their players. Butson, this man has done so much work in these first couple rounds, looking to push forward, looking for that angle. Can't quite get that insta-pop. Going to continue with the shot so far, but GOW, so difficult to take down. And actually, Hans going to be caught by MT7 in the back, leaving Demon all on his own as that chrono. And with no time turner to speak of, he's going to have to use that natural cover to try and get these picks. And look at this Demon. He's really trying to reposition. If he just gets that lucky 1-2 tap, he might be able to turn things around. But no, Fluxo, just too much for them to deal with. And that's going to push the scoreline 3-1 in favor of Fluxo.
That's got to be a little frustrating for Hans, especially because he's still following these are good habits that he's doing as a support player, right? Not only do you want to make sure that your frontliner stays alive, but you want to provide fire from an awkward angle so that they don't continue pushing into the same place, right? Because if you lose your entry fragger and then you have to support him and then you become the next to deal with a 2v1 as the Cassie, you're going to get knocked down. And despite everything that has happened, I think that Fluxo are playing it really, really well, utilizing the cyber airdrop as a means to kind of bait their opponents into exchanges that honestly they shouldn't be peeking in the first place.
Yep. Okay, GOW, they are looking to get another point on that board. The team is pushing pretty far forward together as a team, so they are playing exactly how their composition was supposed to be built. They don't quite get the finish there onto Gio. They will finally drop him, though, and Gio's in an awkward spot, but Demon caught by a grenade thanks to Bob's buying time for the team, and Demon, I don't think it's going to be picked up at all, as Hans, next one to follow, thanks to MT7 sniping in the back, and Rip, everyone is gone. Fluxo pushing the scoreline 4-1 against GOW.
Man, Fluxo are just so sharp. I mean, look at these lineups. They have made lineups for cyber drop contestants on specific maps. I love the fact that they are willing to go out of their way to buy, with the extra economy, a time turner of their own. And luckily, they're slightly different colors so we can tell whose are whose. But so far, Fluxo have been bonus rounding after bonus round after bonus round, right? VSK still in hand, upgraded scars on top of it. We haven't seen the big boy weapons come out from Fluxo. And right now for GOW, this might be one of their few, if not last chances, to try and disrupt the economy.
I mean, they only have 2 lives now. You lose 2 games, and that's going to be it. Fluxo should be able to take the round. So if there's a time to be able to break this curse, as what I'm going to call it right now, this is the best time to do it. But the thing is, how does GOW break through this initial push from Fluxo? Because Fluxo's done so well in these pushes. We haven't really seen them make too many mistakes when they do try and eventually break out into that full-on team fight. They're so good at juking. They're so good at cover, so that they're always covered by at least their back, their sides. They're not really caught off guard. And big hit there onto Dian. Very
so smart. Yes, extremely smart from Fluxo's side here. And I mean, they knew the quota was being used, so they had one person actually go for the crouch on the west flank, making sure that, hey, we're going to get somebody peeking from our side. Just everybody stand up, make sure you're not behind, you're not crouching down, look down my line of sight and keep me covered. And they find that first initial shot. Unfortunately, it wasn't a headshot, but even so, it's good enough damage. The idea is there, and Diane gets bodied once more, forcing a glue wall out of him. His mid-control is slowly slipping away as GOW are forced to rotate out of position, and now the Ignis is going to get full value. 3 glue walls done as Orion pops quickly to buy a little bit more time. Again, selfish as always, but more importantly, he's held back GOW as Hans finds one, puts and trades another. GU comes in with a Trogon, and with the help of MT7 finds the headshot for a clean 4-0.
That entire round collapsed because as soon as GOW saw Woodson, they thought they were going to be able to take him down, but they dropped Woodson, but they also lost Demon right off the bat. He didn't even get the chance to use his time turner. So yes, Woodson is an issue in this round, but does it really matter if you take out Woodson? You still have to deal with MT7, Bops, and GU. So as it goes to show, right, GW, they think it's a one-man issue, but ultimately, I think as spectators, we are seeing that Fluxo as a team overall are problematic to deal with. There is no one player you can remove on the team that instantly solves all of GOW's problems. And now, being that this is round 7 and match point for Fluxo, if they lose this round, we are going to be awarding this first match to Fluxo. So lots of pressure on GOW to find that opening.
We'll see how dominating they're going to be, right? Time Turner has already been thrown out from Fluxo's side. That's one active skill card that they're not going to get back. Unfortunately, not at the most important timing as well. They did buy up at the very least, some of them coming in, at least for MT7, has an AWM in hand on top of his VSK. Honestly, I think it's fine at this point, considering that they bonused for so many rounds, and now we've already secured 2 cyber airdrops. It's anybody's game. But right at the beginning of the round, for early access to information, and unfortunately for Butson, he finally gets punished here. Luckily, with sawed-off and a P90 in hand, they're able to gun him down in a crossfire that he was not able to ouch movement. Now, he does see Boots and Gui now attacking RIP halfway across the map, and GOW need to respond by cutting through the center. They might get caught off in the middle here because Trogon in hand for GU. Yes, he's bought plenty of time as he now has to deal with 3 of the members who are slowly going to push him in. With no line of sight, he goes down. Bops unfortunately lands a shot, but he's already getting pressured by Dion on the opposite side. MT7 looks for the trade, finds one as Hans and Demon start working side by side. Hans goes down, and Demon now cleans up the job. GOW pulls it back here in round 7.
They pull it back, and it was because of Diana being able to fend off against Bootson's flank. I think that was probably one of the major plays here for the team, because all of a sudden Bootson is gone. You're leaving Fluxo with only 3 players remaining, and GW, they will have their full roster moving forward. So we can tell for sure, just looking at the scoreline. I want you all live spectators, look at Bootson's score, 10-6. This man has been putting so much work in getting all of those eliminations for Fluxo. So losing Bootson at all very early in a round is going to be a huge detriment to Fluxo. Not to say that MT7, Bobs, and GU, they're not able to sort of carry through, but you can tell that Bootson, he has been the star MVP for the team so far. So they need to also, if they can, protect Bootson so that he's able to do what he's supposed to do. I did not agree with this flank in that last round, and I'm glad he's sticking with the team now.
I couldn't do the math fast enough. I'm not sure if they have a team booster in hand, but Demon already goes down. And I mean, Fluxo, they're coming in under-equipped, right? They're coming in with the cheaper weapons that are upgraded, and it looks like they've already found one in Demon, looking for his second, but GU cuts them down, no problem whatsoever. The Trogon, you would have imagined that him buying up was being a selfish decision. Nah, he's just the game winner.
And that's going to be match number 1 going to Fluxo, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to put them one step closer towards heading to that upper bracket round. And for GOW fans, this is a bit of a heartbreaking moment because all of a sudden this team is now pinned in the corner. For them to win this set, they will need to reverse sweep with 2 map wins back to back. And unfortunately, none of those maps are going to be Bermuda because Fluxo, they've just taken that first Bermuda map. So GOW, if they have any ace up their sleeve, if they have any strats, they're gonna have to bring it into game number 2 to force that game 3, because with how Fluxo looked in this first match, I would not be surprised if we do end up with a 2-0 scoreline overall today.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dominating performance coming in from Bermuda at the very least, but I think, more exciting yet was the usage of their economy, right? I mean, they bonus round after bonus round, but it also feels like they were walking in with major advantages despite sometimes some big weapons are being bought by GOW. For 2 straight rounds, big purchases came through. Great usage of the UAV overall, and I mean, I think it forced a lot of mind games against GOW because they got such a different version of Fluxo between the rounds.
Yeah, you know what? I have to agree. I thought Fluxo was going to play one particular style, but they did so well in just playing so many different styles. I actually think GOW, they probably realized, like, wait, are we playing against the same team? They keep doing different things every single round, and we just can't put our finger on them. But game MVP goes to Woodson. Gideon, this man, I swear, he popped off in that first match. He got so many crucial eliminations. I kind of feel like Woodson is the reason why Fluxo just cleaned house in this first match.
Yeah, which is, again, a very different from what we saw during their scrimmage rehearsals, right? Again, Woodson was supposed to be, I was expecting him to be that support player, but now that he has his hands on the Tatsuya, and considering his build as well, that he's willing to bring in Dreki, he's willing to have a tactical market, he's more than self-sufficient. And it feels crazy to me because when you start looking at the amount of assists that MT7 was getting on top of what Woodson was putting out in terms of eliminations, their 2-on-2s were ridiculous.
Yeah, it was insane, honestly, to see Fluxo play so well in that first game. And it makes me feel really scared for GOW because I don't know what I would even consider to be a solution for GOW playing against Fluxo in that second map, because it's not a case of just remove this active and all of a sudden this team is more manageable. It's not a case of just winning the first 3 rounds, because Fluxo is not going to give you the time of day to have first 3 rounds to snowball for free. So if GOW have a coach, if they have anybody that is working with the team right now, you got to have a big pep talk. You got to have a big pep talk. You got to talk about changes going into that next round. It's not just a draft. They will, I think, strategically need to out-strategize Fluxo. And I don't know if this team can do this. Out-strategize is one thing, but I feel like the biggest problem that we're seeing, if we have to take fundamentals of the game out of the question, is just map knowledge, right? It really feels that, like, on certain areas where GOW is like, oh yes, we know exactly what we're doing here, we're going to buy some sawed-offs on our side, we're going to play on the main building, we hold our corners, we win games, right? In comparison to Fluxo, which feels like they have a better understanding of more types in different rounds of the areas that they can actually utilize to their advantage, which is, again, interesting to see, because with a composition that isn't what we're used to seeing within Southeast Asia, the level of flexibility and independence that each of the members could do individually is quite nuts without the addition of knowing what angles are actually safe in maps that are ever-changing. Yeah, and speaking of maps, we are going to Nextera for our second game of this best of 3 series, and I don't have the stats here for GOW, but if I do recall personally, they are not a big fan of Nextera. It's not to say they do terribly, but it's not a map where we can say they consistently perform well for Battle Royale. So I don't think it's going to translate very well to CS if they're unable to consistently perform on a particular map. I mean, I hope they practice something for this map in particular, because if they don't have anything in the tank, if they don't have any secret strats, if they don't have anything to surprise Fluxo here and now, this is probably going to end up being a 2-0 round. I really want to be positive here for GOW, but we also have to be fair. It's Fluxo that they're playing up against, a team that has so much potential to just take the whole thing.
I mean, they don't call this the Free Fire World Series Global Finals for nothing, right? It's the creme de la creme, the best of the best coming in from each of these regions. And unfortunately for GOW, squeezing yourself into Clash Squad like this really goes to show how strong some of these members are, which again, these skills do translate over into Battle Royale. Now, from Vietnam's POV, I mean, after that dominant game number 1, I'm surprised that he still thinks that Vietnam is the #1 region right now. Thailand is second and Brazil is third, and they want to beat all the strong teams, including Fluxo. And that's a personal prerogative from RIP.
Yeah, I mean, they got what they asked for. You know, they definitely ended up getting that match against Fluxo. I'm just thinking, right, with this mindset for GOW, they wanted to play Fluxo, and they also do think that Vietnam is a top region. What can you do in match number 2 to just outplay Fluxo? I mean, that's a silly question if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, but that's really the problem that they're facing at the moment. How do you beat Fluxo? Because for game number 2, Fluxo is going to get access to first pick, meaning that unfortunately for GOW, second and third, like getting second and third pick is actually not a bad thing. You get to pick up a pair of characters, whatever the first one may end up being, but you don't get to have that first pick. And sometimes if you're trying to play some kind of cheese strat, if you want to get access to a very OP, overpowered character, first pick is where it's at. So I hope GOW has something lined up for these next 2 picks. I'm going to be honest, I hope it's not Cassie Chrono. I kind of feel GOW need to step away from Cassie. This is not an insult to the team, but I just, looking at the way that they ended up playing with Cassie Chrono, I kind of feel like this is just not a combo that's going to work well against Fluxo. I feel like this team is so well practiced playing against Chrono and Cassie that this is probably not something they want to face, and actually they banned the Cassie, so okay, so hang on. Zane is probably going to go through. Surely we get an Oscar ban here for GOW. Sure.
Yeah, I would imagine. Oh!
What in the...
Ooh.
Hello? Did they not see Fluxo ban Cassie?
Don't blink. The show's about to begin.
To be expected, Oscar is going to be an insta-lock coming in from Fluxo, right? I've talked about it a lot right at the beginning of the show. No need to expedite how devastating Oscar is going to be. But let's see how GOW is going to respond. Because there are a number of ways to try and protect yourself. The only issue is that now Cassie alongside with Zane, with both of them banned, leaving not a lot of supports that actually kind of do what these 2 supports bring to the table. There's no instant value unless they play around something like a Chrono on top of maybe a Dimitri, then at least then your windows are a little bit shorter, but they hit that much harder. I mean, the Chrono as is expected. The Coda for information, I think that's totally fine, but I'm not sure how they're going to round out their composition now.
Yeah, I mean, okay, to be fair, I'm not against Chrono Coda as that second and third pick. I do think it's a very strong duo. I think the good thing is that they're leaving their options open right now. They have a lot of flexibility for their last 2 picks because Chrono, he can function in several ways to benefit the team. He can play more of that supporty style, or you can go for more of that rusher style. But the response from Fluxo, I am curious to see if Steffi does end up being the pick, because we've seen Steffi cause quite a lot of surprises in the Southeast Asia Clash Squad scene. And yeah, Steffi is here to play. All of a sudden, those throwables are not looking so attractive anymore. And the Santino that was still in the pool? GOW, what are you giving Fluxo?
I mean, that's totally fine from GOW's perspective. They knew what they wanted. They were willing to start give at least 1 more power pick over to the side of Fluxo because it's inevitable. But the Steffi, I feel, is a very interesting call, right? Because for all intents and purposes, Fluxo could have waited until the very end to show off the Steffi. But I think more importantly, they now have that advantage with the Oscar. They're expecting the A1 to eventually come out. So with the Steffi at hand, they might be able to kind of protect themselves from these projectiles, these throwables, including the A1, which is also a considered throwable. Now, Iris, the final lock-in for the side of GOW Esports. I'm not gonna lie, MT7 was doing a lot of work with the Iris holding that high ground here, and when crucial moments started to come through where the glue walls are supposed to protect you, that's when MT7 on Iris decided that it's not gonna happen. Now, GOW is gonna have access to it, and Clue as the final pick for Fluxo. I don't know about you, Danelli, but I'm thinking this is an interesting shape of draft that GOW ended up with, but Fluxo, considering that their game number 1 was so flexible, so adaptive, now they have, again, yes, a composition that I think each individual player can have their selfish moment. Maybe not for Steffi, but for Oscar and Santino, absolutely.
I'm scared to see Woodson on that Oscar. We saw Woodson on Tatsuya last round, and look at what he was able to pull off with the Tatsuya. Now you're putting him on an Oscar, which is basically a juiced up Tatsuya. Oh man, I really, if I could, I would love to interview GOW right now before the game starts and say, okay, gentlemen, please explain to me what made you think Oscar being given away to Fluxo, like what were you going to get in exchange for this? Because I feel like this is almost a trade that nobody wins. If Oscar gets, if anyone picks Oscar, that's an insta win for whoever gets the Oscar. And in exchange, it was Coda and Chrono, which I think we can both agree, Gideon. Chrono, very, very solid character. I think a lot of teams do prioritize the Chrono. Coda's pretty solid as well, but I think even combined, I would still prioritize an Oscar as one of my picks if possible. I mean, okay, if they let the Zane through and they banned the Oscar themselves, would much have changed?
If they let the Zane through, banned out the Oscar, I would say that things would change just a little bit more, right? Because again, Zane and Cassie are such powerful enablers for a lot of these compositions. Like Oscar, I think there is an argument that GOW is trying to make, saying, if we just A124 the Oscar, what is he going to do? Break through on glue walls? Nah, he's going to be dead in the waters, right? And without Cassie and Zane to kind of back him up and give him that extra bit of durability, then Oscar just becomes an all-in character. He's just going to be the linchpin before the bullet actually flies out of the barrel. So now they can start working on the other members, because Oscar is always going to be that lead. I think that GOW wants to have some kind of idea of, oh, we don't want our heads to be messed around with. We want Fluxo to be as honest as possible, and I think this is as good as it gets.
Yep. It's just that is Woodson on that Oscar. Oh my gosh. I know who I am going to be keeping my eye on in this matchup, because I feel this man is going to dictate the tempo of these games. He's going to be the deciding factor on who takes what round. But we do have a handshake. Oh, there's actually a fist pump from our coaches. So that's an indicator to us, ladies and gentlemen, that we are ready to jump into game number 2. We are going to be flying into Next Terra, and with Fluxo currently leading with a 1-match win over GOW, all of a sudden the pressure is now on the Wolves to win this map and also the next one if they want to be able to swipe this series away from the 2024 Battle Royale champions known as Fluxo. It's going to be a really exciting matchup. I have a lot of expectations for GOW. Show us why you say Vietnam is the best region in Free Fire.
Burn those doubts. They got to start burning those doubts right now and prove to everybody out there that they got what it takes. It's going to be a hard climb, though, and I'm so curious to see how Fluxo, one of the best Clash Squad teams out there, is going to utilize these combination of active skill cards, right? Because, again, as much as I've talked about Oscar, that Steffi could cause a couple of problems, and I think for GOW, there are certain situations where it's actually unfavorable to hold ground. They actually have to sacrifice that ground as much as they possibly can to ensure that Steffi doesn't get full value from her active skill card to enable Oscar to run on in, because Steffi technically works as that pseudo support. But now it is time. Let's get into it. Our second game in our first series of the day. Fluxo facing off against GOW here in Next Terra.
Yeah, it's pistol round time, so we'll have to see who is going to be favored in this very very luck-based matchup, I kind of feel like, with the pistol rounds. And oh my gosh, already a couple of shots connecting onto Hans. Fluxo already on point with their shots. MT7 does take a little bit of damage there, but we can see Bobs looking to go for the flank there onto Demon, but Bobs is the one to take damage instead. Demon, though, we do have the mannequin being deployed, so we do have that escape path. We'll see if they decide to come back. The mannequin, though, will be destroyed by Demon, so no more Santino shenanigans for the next couple seconds. So what's the plan here? Fluxo, just looking at their position, they are actually playing very, very reactively now.
Oh, absolutely. I think I think it's really important that they do. And the initial reposition, the initial flank coming out from the Santino makes a lot of sense, right? That's what all Santinos are looking for. But look at the way that Fluxo move as a unit, right? As soon as that swap comes through, instantly you see the members who know that, hey, he's covered all this space. They haven't taken back that space. Let's quickly rotate to that side and see whether we find these opportunities. They didn't find it, so they repositioned back. And GOW, they're trying to hold strong. Now fighting within inside the compound. Button, he still has the Valiant dash here. Unfortunately, Clue, it's going to take a little bit longer before it actually comes back up. The USP in hand, tries to get as many shots down as he can. Swinging with all three of their members. Demon is going to be the first one to actually take those hits as RIP tries to cover him. Bobs ends up going down, finds the trade. Can they get Demon back up within the pistol round itself? They still have the time turner active, ready to go. Iris as well. Problem is that there's no glue walls right now, and they're playing against natural cover. Now, at least with the Cyclones dropping down in time, Time Turner finally out, tries to go for the swipe on this side, doesn't land enough shots, but loses at least 80 HP off of it. Spins around for the 180 to go against RIP as the next one already falls from the side of Fluxo. GU, the only one left, and it's too late, even with his active available, just not enough under the fire.
That bait by Demon was beautiful. Hiding around the corner, forcing Bobs to be the one to jump on out and try and go for that finishing blow, but Bobs being the one to be taken out first. That was beautiful. That's the kind of play I'm expecting from GOW to get this match on their side of the corner and to force that game number 3. But keep in mind, folks, that was pistol round, okay? Pistol round is generally very inconsistent. Now that we do have a little bit of money on both of these teams, we are going to be seeing more potential of these lineups. And, I mean, this doesn't mean Fluxo is out of the running at all. They still have a very scary lineup, but now they are slightly better equipped than that first round. Hans, though, looking to go for a flank himself, just going to use a little bit of that, a little bit of the cover for now to try and sneak his way through, but Woodson has spotted him out. Time Turner going to be deployed, so that shield will protect Hans for a little bit longer. Instead, going to retreat back into that tower. And on the other side of the map, we did see Demon taking critical amounts of damage on the A124, is trying to heal back up, but unfortunately, quite dangerous of a position to do so. But Bobs, he's been caught by Rip.
Unable to cover every single angle across the map, but that's how messy Nextera can be. It's important to have information on your hands, and they still have Clue's active skill card ready to go for MT7, but right now, they already know the positions, and more so, they can't seem to find an advantage just yet, Diane. He tries, MT7 manages to pull back just in time. Hans holding this smoke, trying to make sure that they cannot take any more space from them. The play area is eventually going to get shortened in, forcing them up towards that high ground. RIP on the southern side flank. North side taken care of by Fluxo. GU, luckily, at least with his Deagle, is putting in some decent work here. He should be able to start securing himself cyber airdrops in just a little bit, but for now, they want to make sure Gio taking 80% of his HP. Woodson, he's ready to try and bait with Micro Uzi. He finds one in Demon. Deanne is aware, but with the Deagle and rifle in hand, not sure. Oh, tries with the scythe. A little too far. Woodson puts him down low. 10% still left. Knows that the Fluxo member has got his angles. Nicely played by Fluxo. Mid-control at the end.
Looked a little dicey there for Fluxo, but they do manage to get across that finish line safe and sound after some very, very great footwork coming out from the team. I loved how they slowly pushed GOW to the other side of the platform. Originally, GOW did have that central tower to themselves, but with the slow push that came in, it really because they lost map control of that central tower, it made it very difficult for the team to start moving in as that circle got smaller and smaller. So great job there from Fluxo and GAW. They need to keep their heads on their shoulders. Don't get too excited just because you took the pistol round off of Fluxo. And we do have a bit of a 1v1 there. Dion looking to go for a challenge onto MT7. The rest of the team, though, are going to have to deal with their own guests as Fluxo moving right into GOW and the rip. First player to go down. Hans, next one to follow as well. We actually had a scythe drop by Blitzen going in full melee. Blitzen does go down, unfortunately, but Rip has been caught too. Demon is on the ground, leaving Dion all on his own to try and carry his team on his shoulders, but there's only so much you can do as a solo Iris. Fluxo take round number 3, pushing the score 2-1.
Really nice play here coming in. The Valiant Dash instantly finding at least one in RP, as well as Hans with the rest of his team backing up. I mean, they all knew exactly what they wanted to do. MT7 already made collision with the other opposing flanker. He just had to buy a little bit of time to make sure that his line of sight is always fixed upon that flanker to make sure he can't get any more angles or at least hurt the front line of Fluxo as they look to engage on the cyber airdrop. Even so, after all of that, Fluxo was coming out of this with one cyber airdrop in the bag, and I don't know how many times we're going to see this side actually find a kill, but Butson, he's making it happen super often so far, considering the number of Cyclones being deployed.
Yeah, look, we knew Butson was going to be a monster just based off of his Game 1 performance. So to see him do this well on the Oscar, it's no surprise. Rip, though, managing to get a surprise elimination there onto Bop. So all of a sudden, Fluxo at a one-man deficit against a 4-man full roster of God of Wolf. So Fluxo, I do expect this team to sort of slow things down a little bit after losing their Santino because they've lost their main flanker. And this does push Butsons to really play into that hard frontline role for the team alongside Gio, because if they don't do that, the team is going to play split, and that's very easy for you to get picked off. But look at that Demon running up onto the hill, getting caught by Butson. What kind of play was that, GOW? They ran up the hill, they thought it was going to be fine, but oh man, Fluxo raining them down with bullets and making this team regret everything.
Oh, it wasn't a bad idea from GOW, right? They just needed their opponents to drop down more glue walls, but they're just hyper aware of when the Iris actually pops, right? And you can see that as soon as they didn't care about it, Butson's like, we don't need these glue walls. He's already popped the Iris. We just need to start pushing through and get that time turner out of them. Once the time turner is out, we can win. We've got the flank angles down and we're a man up. We can do what we want. And these are the conditions that Fluxo is finding consistently against GOW, right? GOW, on the other hand, they've got good ideas, but I don't think they have as many protocols as Fluxo right now, even with a man down.
Yeah, oh man, GAW, they do need to try to sharpen themselves up a little bit. Now the thing is, Crab Flaps, this is not a map anyone enjoys, especially with the fact that there's a lot of verticalities and the gravity itself doesn't really help. Butson's though in a bit of a skirmish there with Hans, but looks like Dion, he has been caught on the other side, and now Bob's raining down onto Demon, who's trying to play on the side, ends up jumping onto the low ground, but GAW, it looks like they're just being absolutely dismantled.
Oh, Hans is trying to buy as much time as physically, humanly possible, but he doesn't have the support of everybody else. The other members of GOW is too busy trying to deal with the Santino flanker on the back that they were looking for with the A124. And MT7 continues to chase down Rip until the ends of the earth. They keep colliding with each other, and half of these rounds in first blood picks from GOW is whether or not RIP is able to find that initial flank or at least counter the attack from the opposing side of Fluxo. MT7 in particular.
I'm really worried here, Gideon, because again, Fluxo is starting to run away with the match entirely. 4-1. That's already a huge gap between the two teams, and all Fluxo need are 2 more wins, which, just based off of how they've been playing, that is a very, very possible reality for this team to secure within the next 2 rounds. GOW, they have so many games that they need to catch up and win that I'm a little bit worried that they're going to be losing out to that fatigue because Fluxo's still just looking so sharp round after round after round, especially with their decision making and with what resources that they've basically given themselves. Again, Butson in such an aggressive position, but then again, remember, he's playing on the Oscar. He has a lot of leeway. Looks like Rip, though, running into a 1v1 there with Bop. Rip, he really needed to get the elim, but it's just so annoying dealing with the Santino. Just being able to go for the swaps is making it so difficult for him to get those final blows.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of the resources, right, Fluxo, they don't actually mind dropping this particular round because overall they've been bonusing and finding those cyber airdrops consistently in those past two, putting them at such a high economic value in comparison to GOW per round capita, right? And GOW, with their investments here, they know that things are starting to get desperate. M5s in hand, they need to close the distance, and they've already got a bit of a split of their own. However, if they're going to close the distance, they need to make some sacrifices, one which I don't know if they've bought enough smokes to make that happen. RIP, he needs to win this out and finally gets popped, and now it's going to be a full collision between the frontliners as Demon tries his best. Two-time turners dropped, and even the Steffi as well. They finally get Han. Ooh, MT7 goes down. Hans finds it, and RIP closes it up at the very end. Nicely played by GOW.
The beginning of a potential comeback. This is what I want to see from this team. And if they can start to get this ball rolling, Gideon, I think there is a very possible reality that GOW will be able to equally challenge Fluxo. Because remember, right now, Fluxo, they are working with a better economy than GOW. So now the tables are starting to turn. Are we finally going to see the Wolves overcome their biggest challenge yet?
Well, not yet, not yet. Fluxo is going to take a full, I want to say full econ round, but they have invested just a little bit. Now, the UAVs taken out very early on in the cyber airdrop going to get contested, and Butson, he's bought up to at least an MP5 at this point, upgraded in a matter of fact, to try and make sure that this doesn't go unscathed. Now, they've already secured 3 cyber airdrops, plenty to work with on their side as they valiant dash on through to try and isolate their targets and even block them off from the exit. Beautifully played by Butson. Drops down his own time turners, but unfortunately can't get through with the help of the Iris. Deanne making sure that it is worth the effort, worth the time. But with M5s in hand, it can only go on for so long. RIP finds one. He's looking for the X. He's finished off the targets, but the high ground has been contested, and they did take too much damage, forcing RIP and Demon to hide back in this corner. The smoke is good, but right now Fluxo are just looking that much better.
Wow, so GW, interesting choice. They are playing on that low ground, and Fluxo, they can see them, but the issue is they can't reach them unless they jump down themselves. So I think this is a smart play from GW so far to be able to use that cover, but unless there's some kind of follow-through for GW, they're just going to lose the round very, very slowly to Fluxo. That circle is closing in, and depending on the trajectory of that next circle, maybe Demon is going to be in a position where he can potentially pull off a miracle round. But again, it depends if he's able to get those money shots and if the circle works in his favor, and that just not even given the chance. Gio says this round is ours. We are now at match point. You need to win the next 4 games if you want to push it to a game 3, and we are not going to give you that opportunity. Fluxo is just playing so good today.
Yeah, it's crazy to see that Fluxo are being more frugal than the Asians themselves, right? Again, they're like, all right, I don't have an M5. You picked up an M5 from Demon earlier. Okay, cool. You go handle it. I am not willing to lose my weaponry this early on. I want to make sure that I'm carrying over at least some of the good stuff for this round, because now this is a make it or break it for GOW. AWMs coming out from MT7. VSK's on Bops as well as an M5. Same goes for GU. I think Butson, he's been putting his neck on the line every single time, and now he wants to deal with the initial flank from RIP. They've kind of changed the score on how these 1v1s go. Even GU forced out to use his time turner as RIP is in a really awkward spot. He is just chaining fighting into people that he wasn't expecting. While you see on the backside, plenty of time being bought, and after the clue pop, they know exactly where they're going to be. Center of the map controlled by GOW, and finally Deanne gets his head blown off before RIP actually goes down, and now Fluxo reclaim high ground. Butson does end up getting traded. Demon does find one. They have to be aware that Demon, currently with the AWM in hand, is still a dangerous threat. So they're going to just nade him out of place and let MT7 do the rest. Booyah achieved, and that is a clean 2-0 from Fluxo.
Our 2024 champions just flexing their skill in not just Battle Royale, but now also Clash Squad on the global stage. This is clearly going to be the team to look out for in the Clash Squad stage. I'm pretty sure everyone is watching them to see how do you beat them. What is the recipe for this team, and how can we ruin their plans? But I think Fluxo, they're just pretty content with themselves. You know, a quick 2-0 set for them. They're just going to have to get ready for their next matches. I'd love to know from Fluxo's POV, who out of the field of teams in Clash Squad this year are they considering their arch nemesis? Like, what team do they fear? I don't think they fear anybody, but who technically do they fear the most if they end up in a grand final round with them?
They're probably looking towards, Countryside, looking at R7 or looking at E1, one or the other, I would assume, because they're probably the more familiar with what they're capable of. But I think that Fluxo, not much to be scared about if that's how they're going to play, right? It's one of the few things that you don't get to see a lot in Battle Royale, and that's how to condition your opponent, and more importantly, what Fluxo is extremely good at, taking advantage of bad habits. We saw that RIP consistently was going to be the one on that flank. They also figured out that he likes to actually fall back into places within line of sight of his opponents, which is why we saw Hans lose his head in that final round. They didn't know this until halfway through. Fluxo are just downloading their opponents.
Downloading them through their minds, through their gameplay. I think this is going to be a very scary reality for all of the competitors in Clash Squad, seeing how quickly Fluxo can adapt to their opponents. Because yes, Fluxo know how to play their own game, but they read GOW so quick, so fast. Like, every round you could see the team was learning and just basically problem solving their opponents. And you can see towards the end, right, I think Fluxo just something clicked and the team realized, okay, this is how GOW play. We now know how to dismantle them. And sure, there may be 1 or 2 rounds where they didn't do so well, maybe a mistake was made, but man, Fluxo looks so good today. We have an interview lined up with Fluxo, so let's see what they have to say after securing their first win here for Clash Squad.
All right, congratulations, Fluxo. What a game. 2 straight win going against a team that is also pretty strong. Let's have a bit of a conversation. We're here with the players as well as the translator, our very own Carol. Hi, Carol.
Hello.
Okay, so my first question is there any tips and tricks that you guys might share or could share to us? Because we see that Fluxo is adapting really well, seeing how Gao was playing today. They really know how to, strategize and to go against Gao. What is the key of success that Fluxo has to win today's game?
A primeira pergunta é se existe alguma dica que vocês gostariam de dar. Qual que é a chave do sucesso de vocês conseguirem implementar um jogo tão fácil e muito forte em cima do time do Vietnã, da Gal?
Eu acho que nosso time é um time que é muito forte de bala, na trocação de tiro, eu acho que todo mundo é muito bom. Então isso, querendo ou não, num 4x4, que é você trocando tiro o tempo todo, é algo que favorece muita gente. E além disso, a gente tem um tático muito bom, a gente tem uma experiência muito boa, uma história assim dentro do jogo muito boa que faz nosso time ser muito sólida, eu acho que em qualquer tipo de modo de jogo.
Basically, we have a lot of chemistry together. We have a lot of history together. So we know what each other are thinking. We can use this chemistry to build a good strategy inside of the game. So yeah, it's not all about the abilities, but the chemistry that we have like for many years together.
Ah, that's interesting. Yunsu, do you have anything to ask them as well?
Yes, I'm very excited because as we all know, Fluxo right now is the championship of the Clash Squad in Brazil, right? So it is an honor for us to interview them here. So for MT7, since we are moving into a new meta, completely new items are included in the game. So I would like to ask MT7, how could you guys adapt so fast and achieve this winning so easily?
Bom, a pergunta é sobre o novo meta. Como é que vocês conseguiram se adaptar tão fácil ao novo meta? Porque aos olhos das pessoas de fora, vocês estão realmente assim jogando livremente, como se já tivessem aprendido o meta desde ontem.
Mano, acho que vai mais da base de treino. A gente treina bastante, dias e noites, treinando bastante esse novo meta. E acredito que isso ajudou muito a gente a aperfeiçoar mais o jogo.
So, honestly, we just have been practicing a lot, and that is the main key. So we have been practicing every day, all the time, and we are just focused to learn the new meta. And it's no secret; it's just practice.
Ooh, no secret, just practicing. And speaking of both formats, Clash Squad and Battle Royale, what do you think are the chances of Fluxo winning in both formats? Because we know, and we've been talking about it, can Fluxo win it again, both this time?
Quais são as chances do Fluxo ganhar os dois modos, tanto o modo CS quanto o mapa aberto Battle Royale?
Pelos nossos treinos e resultados, eu acho que tem uma boa chance. Ainda mais por ser os atuais campeões do modo Battle Royale. Tomamos um fumo ali no Ninja Clash, mas eu acho que a gente voltou pro Brasil, a gente treinou muito, conseguimos no Brasil fazer uma campanha incrível no 4x4, então acho que a gente vem bem preparado.
Well, we have been very prepared for that. We have been practicing both Battle Royale and Clash Squad. Of course, in our past, and during Ninja Clash, we didn't do so well, but we have learned from our mistakes, and right now we feel 100% prepared for that. So our chances to win everything is really high.
I think it's very important that practicing is very important, right? So maybe that is why they got it here, and I think it's so good for them right now. And for Battle Royale, I think they can come back stronger than the last time. What about you, Conchita?
Oh, I think so too. So, is there anything you'd like to say to the viewers and the fans of Fluxo, guys?
Tem alguma coisa que vocês gostariam de compartilhar com as pessoas que estão assistindo, principalmente os fãs do Fluxo, talvez?
Mano, quero mandar um beijo pra toda a minha família, mandar um beijo pros torcedores do Fluxo, que tá de manhã aí no Brasil, vocês estão acordando pra assistir a gente dando esse show. E é só um beijo, segue o Fluxo e é nóis.
Right now, we just want to share our love and our thoughts and say we are very grateful for all the Brazilian fans that are watching us right now because it's morning time in Brazil. It's around 8 in the morning, so we are very grateful for all the people that are watching us right now this early in the morning. So thank you so much. Kisses for my family and fans.
How do you say good morning then in Portuguese? How do you say good morning?
Bom dia.
Bom dia!
How to say that?
Yes, I am.
All right then, thank you so much and congratulations once again. Now let's go back to the casters. Take it away, casters.
And there you have it, words from winners themselves, of course, humble as ever, but you can see the competitive level that they're putting themselves at and why they are coming in there almost nonchalantly confident about their own capabilities. You can't be like us. You don't have the years backing us together. And better yet, just the way that they have been playing. They've been practicing in and out, day in, to make sure that they win everything.
Look, they know they're good, and I think if you're as good as Fluxo, you deserve to flaunt your skill, your ability as a player, and even just to openly say, like, we can win everything. I mean, they didn't say they would win everything,
it's
but
implied.
they have a high chance. Yeah, so it's implied, like, they know that they very likely have a good chance of taking everything this year. So I'd be a little bit afraid for the rest of our competitors, especially for Clash Squad and Battle Royale, because if they actually take everything, Fluxo is probably going to be the team to set the new standard for Free Fire going into 2026. So we have to see if anyone can potentially challenge them in that regard. We do have to prep actually for the next matchup as well, folks, because we do have 6 matchups lined up for today. But before we introduce our second match of the day, we do need to celebrate all of our teams and players that have performed very well in our first game. And firstly, game MVP for game number 2 is none other than MT7, putting in the work with the clue. And look what we have here, Gideon. We have a hammer.
That's what I was hoping to see, because you don't go into some of these rounds without the extra upgrades. And it's great because as you saw, with so many bonus rounds that they actually got, bonus rounds or even econ rounds that they got, they were making sure that they were having some pretty decent upgrades thanks to this enhanced hammer. Whether it's finding eliminations, which he didn't find too many of, he didn't mind because it's given to you as the rounds go by. So the beautiful thing is that it affects everybody on his team, right? Everybody gets to be a part of this epic bonus. And that's probably why Butson can be a little bit more cost efficient with the way that he plays, and he doesn't mind actually going down knowing that the enhanced hammer is coming back up the next round.
Yeah. Now the scoreline for our second game between Fluxo and GOW ended 6-2. So Fluxo, very, very convincing round. Yes, it's not a 6-0, but they looked beautiful in their first game of the day. We do want to have a quick look at the match summary as well, just so we can round things up here for our first game of the day. Ultimately, 2-0 in this best of 3 set. I think it wouldn't be too far to say that Fluxo were favored to win this set. 2-0 was probably the very likely scoreline as well, just because GOW, they barely scraped into Clash Squad to begin with. And unfortunately for GOW, I believe in past Clash Squads, they didn't do so well either, so they're probably not super practiced in the game mode. And I don't blame teams for not being comfortable in Clash Squad, because even though it's very, very similar to Battle Royale, you're still playing 4 versus 4. Strategically, there are some pretty big differences between the two game modes. So not everything is going to translate 100% between the two. But I have to say though, GOW playing that well against Fluxo, I think you've got to be proud of yourself. You got to be proud. You're going to learn a lot of things, and maybe in their lower bracket matches, maybe they learn a thing or two from Fluxo, and that brings them through that lower bracket and pushes them into the next play day. Now, Gideon, let's talk about our bracket here. We've just finished up our first game. What are we looking at for our next matchup?
All right, for our next matchup, it's going to be a bit of a civil war within South America. The big rivalry between Latam as well as Brazil. R7 faces off against E1. And obviously, all of the fans of the West are like, why? Why did it have to be like this? And sorry to say, that was just their rankings within Battle Royale. But we got to look at some of these match highlights, because again, as you mentioned and clearly stated, some of these skills don't really transfer over, and some of these habits can be taken advantage on. Here in map number 1, we can see that as long as Hans makes an uncomfortable move or falls back into his muscle memory, these are readable motions that Fluxo have taken into consideration when dealing with the Cassie. And not to mention, once we get into game number 2, right, the different usages of the iris, whether it's MT7, but in this case, Diane, they were using it at the right times. However, MT7 has better communication with the rest of his team, knowing who he is poking down so that he can capitalize on the initial damage that was laid out by Butsin.
Yeah, and I think it also helps the Fluxo that they picked a somewhat unconventional lineup. I think a lot of teams wouldn't have really drafted in the way that they have. They drafted great for their own individual players. They're all very capable of playing their characters and utilizing their actives. But for the other teams, I don't think you would get much scrim practice with a team such as that. So, like, how would you even practice, and how would you even know to react to Fluxo's draft in match number 2? So, I mean, I'm glad that we had something a little bit unconventional for our first matchup of the day, because I'm kind of expecting some more of this from our teams today. Who knows, maybe we'll fall back into that general rhythm. But we only saw a short run for Nero. I think there was definitely, and there still currently is a bit of discussion as to how Nero sort of fits into the Clash Squad meta. Now, bear in mind, we only saw one best of 3 today. We've still got 5 more games to go, so maybe we see a little bit more Nero. But just based off of what we did see, Gideon, how are we kind of feeling with our Nero picks here? Like, is there potential for Nero to kind of pop off as a potential pick?
I think that Nero definitely has potential, and I think it specifically does very well into the standardized comps that most people are used to in these internationals, or whether it's in their locals when it comes down to the drafting phase, right? Nero works really, really well with either an A1, very, very useful at shutting down your opponents, completely silencing them, on top of making sure that they can't use glue walls, so it turns it into a very uneven, unhonest fight where one can use glue walls and the others can't. Or you can even lean into the Skylar, especially in hold-up positions. You throw that plush, you expect everybody to look at that plush, you start stripping away the glue walls, and instantly you have line of sight. Those are the few ways that we know for certain that you can utilize it. but how many? Because we've seen that at least when Nero comes out, there's a bit of a compromise in, do we have the extra firepower to strip away more resources, or do we lean back into something like Coda or Clue? Because half the battle is information.
Yeah, that is true, right? Because we did see some teams try to get away with no vision and it backfired. I don't think I've seen any team be able to thrive in that kind of environment. So it is time to get into game number 2 here, folks. Very exciting matchup here. So I guess we get ready for our next matchup, folks. It's going to be Movistars R7 going up against E1. Get ready for it, folks. But first, let's introduce our teams and the players.
All right, survivors. The heat continues right here in Jakarta.
It is time for another Fury Clash Squad showdown. This time, a Latin American classic.
That's right. In this matchup, we've got R7 from Latam taking on E1 from Brazil. Two teams who know each other fairly well.
For years, Brazil has been seen as the dominant force in the region, while Latam has always been sidelined. Will that change today?
Well, R7 has shown that they can stand toe-to-toe with anyone. They finished higher than E1 in the Battle Royale standings, 4th versus 5th. And today, they're ready to prove it wasn't just a fluke.
It is also a clash of styles. R7 brings that wild, fearless aggression, while E1 prefers precision, control, and tactile execution.
So, it's passion versus patience, chaos versus calculations. It doesn't get more Latin than this, I think.
So, let's bring out the teams.
From Latam, a team that's been on the rise since the start of the tournament. They are also the Clash Squad champion of their region, led by their wonder kid, Games King, followed by Della, Hust, and Joker. They play fast, fearless, and full of flair. This is Movistar R7!
The Brazilian powerhouse, a team that never stops evolving, finishing 4th in last year's global finals. They are back to reclaim their place among the elite. With the veteran rusher, Paul 7 returning to the roster, alongside Vitin XP, Lion, and Vitin9, get ready to roar for E1! Rivalry. Next, the players exchange fist bumps as a mark of professionalism.
Once the round begins, it's all fire and fury. Time to crush doubts and let the battle ignite! Two Latin giants step into one arena. Pride, passion, and power will collide tonight. Only one will rise above the rest.
It is a duel between aggression and calculation. Raw fires versus refined control. Which flames burns brighter under pressure?
The stage is ready and the heat is real. Now, casters, good luck and take it away!
All right, right, folks, welcome to match number 2. It's our second game of the day after we've concluded our first one. And this one's a bit of a doozy, Gideon, okay? It's no Asian teams at all. We have a LATAM and Brazil rivalry match. And in their region, this is a extremely big deal because you have your pride on the line. You also have to wave your region's flag as well. And I think this is going to be a pretty interesting one because there are different, there are things that both of these teams have that the other doesn't. And so far, just based on the stats that I have seen, I can't really put my finger and say, this team is the favorite or this team is the favorite. They have their own pros and cons as to what make them really great. Just a quick update in case people don't follow the LATAM and Brazilian regions. So for Movistars R7, they are the Clash Squad champions for LATAM 2025 this year. And they qualified globally through the regular season as the number 1. And they're known for their rhythm and their unpredictability in terms of team gameplay, which we saw in Battle Royale. I love how this team plays in Battle Royale. As for E1, representatives of Brazil, they are labeled as a very structured and composed team with top-tier mid-round adjustments. So I'm kind of expecting E1 to learn about Movistars' playstyle and be the adaptive team. Whereas Movistars, they're probably the ones to set the tempo moving from game 1 onwards.
I have to agree with that. I think the Movistar R7, if not, I think the real question is whether E1 can adapt fast enough, right? Is it going to happen within the same map, or do they have to wait until game 2 before they fully see the big picture? And I think this is the advantage that R7 is coming in big time against them, right? Because again, with momentum piling up per rounds on top of map per map, we'll see whether or not it's going to be an overwhelming tidal wave of fluid motions in comparison to the cold, calm, and collected calculations that we're expecting out of E1. And taking everything into consideration, right? I'm hoping that we do see a couple of interesting picks coming out from R7 in particular, very similarly to what we saw in our previous matchup between Fluxo and G.